Okay, great. So we're going to begin. This is Brandon from DevPost. For those of you that just joined, we have checked in over the last few minutes just to say that we're here, and we wanted to give some people a few minutes to join. I'll just say again that I'm here with, I'm Brandon from DevPost. I'm CEO and founder, and we're delighted to be working with GE and GE Digital Brilliant Manufacturing, and to have both Mark, who is a product executive, and Sunita as well. So here's how it's going to work. We're going to keep this short and sweet. First, I will start by talking about the high-level important details of the competition, and I'll show a slide about that. And then a little bit in terms of how to actually enter the competition, including the 2 phases of ideas and then applications. And then I'm going to throw it over to Mark and Sunita, who are going to dive in and show the 3 different products that are part of this competition, and at a very high level also talk about what will be available through the APIs. And then we will end with Q&A. We are recording this, and this will be up, it's on YouTube Live, and it will be up on YouTube later, and it'll be linked, of course, from the DevPost site, so that you can see the link later. And we also have several folks who are in technical department at GE who are in the chat room. We'll be there to answer any questions. And if none of us have the answer either about the competition or another question, another answer, then we'll certainly answer that later by posting an update to the competition website. So with that, I am going to begin. Great. So the key competition information, first there's the website. It is the most important URL for you to have, which is brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com. If you ever can't find it, go to DevPost and either look on the homepage where it's often linked or do a search for it, but it's brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com. And then the very key dates you need to know is, first of all, March 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern. This is when ideas are due. So it's important that everybody know that this is a 2-phase competition. First, you submit your ideas for an app, extension, or data visualization according to the requirements of the competition. And then the top 30 ideas will receive hackathon-specific Predicts account access. Predicts is obviously the GE platform, and through that you will get access to data for the top 30 ideas, and then those 30 will then be able to actually make their applications, extensions, or data visualizations and build them into a functioning solution, and that submission deadline is May 8th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So first, ideas, and we really think that the main purpose of this webinar here is to give you this high-level overview of the competition, let you know about the product so that you can submit your ideas. And then in prizes, there are $50,000 in cash and prizes. They're awesome. All of them can be found at the URL brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com. If you have any questions at any time, there are many places for you to post them. We will go over them at the end, but that's support at DevPost. It's posting on the discussion board. It's posting in the Slack channel. And we also have an FAQ that goes over frequently asked questions. So my next and last slide here from the DevPost side is how to enter. We just wanted to go over the very basics of how you're going to enter this competition. This is taken right from the homepage of the challenge competition site. The first step is to register for this competition at GE Brilliant Hacks on DevPost. The second is to then visit the resources page to learn more about the Brilliant Manufacturing APIs and common manufacturing problems that customers in this space face. Sunita and Mark will be going over those after this. The third is optional, which is to find a teammate. If you don't have a teammate, but you want one, then there are actually multiple places for you to find them. You can post on the discussion board, but the best place to post is on the Slack channel, and this is linked from the homepage where you can just join the Slack channel, talk to other people, and mention that you're looking for a teammate. Next up is submitting your idea. Now, there are actually two different types of submissions, as I've mentioned, as part of this competition. First, there's the idea itself, and then second, the application that you actually build. The ideas have their own submissions area, and there is a custom tab at the top of the hackathon site. It says idea submissions, and you click on that. That's where you submit your ideas. We've seen some people post them to the other spot where the applications go. We'll let you know if that happens, but look for the idea submission tab. At that point, as mentioned, the 30 highest scoring ideas will be given access to a hackathon-only predicts environment. At that point, you'll build your submissions and shoot a demo video. The demo video is extremely important. It should show your actual application working so that everybody can view it, and it lowers some of the requirements around testing, allows more people to see the value behind your application. And then at the end, provide DevPost access to your submission for judging and testing. And that deadline is going to be May 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I want to repeat at this point, if you have any questions, you can post them at any time during this webinar in the chat room, and we will make sure that we answer them to the best of our ability during the webinar. So with that, I am going to throw it to Mark and Sunita, who are from GE Digital Brilliant Manufacturing.
Yeah, thank you, Brendan, for having us. So for each of the products that are available as part of the hackathon, I'm going to give a brief description as well as talk over some of the problems that it's trying to solve. For each of the products, I'll also try and use an analogy for anyone that's less familiar with the manufacturing environment so that it makes more sense about what we're trying to do within the normal context of what we do as either consumers or as just individuals within this age where there's all these internet services. So the first one is WIP Manager. Analogy I use is that WIP Manager is to the shop floor what FedEx Tracker or UPS Tracker is for us as consumers. So all of us are aware, most of us probably have Amazon Prime accounts, and as soon as you submit to an order, whatever you're purchasing on Amazon, you get to know every step of the way where that product is in terms of, is someone gathering the products within the warehouse? When did it leave the warehouse? Where is it at in its journey from the warehouse to your front door? And also, you may get a notification as soon as it's at your front door. What WIP Manager attempts to do is have that same capability, but for shop floors. So as a manufacturer who needs to know exactly where are all the orders that they have, both on a plant basis, so within a certain plant, as well as in their supply chain. So they may have 5 plants that are running all sorts of different products, but they want to know from a remote location what's the health of their work in process. How many parts do they have? What's waiting for queue? All of that stuff. So it really enables them to have a one-stop shop for order visibility. In terms of what problems it's trying to solve, and I've talked about it, without walking the shop floor, no one or few people know where the orders are in the plant. And you can use the same analogy to say, before the USPS had a tracking number and before UPS.com existed, when you ordered something, maybe through a telephone catalog, you didn't know when it would arrive. And while from a consumer, that's almost a little exciting because every day could be like Christmas when it finally gets here, it's also frustrating because as a consumer, you want the product, but using the analogy back to a manufacturer, you commit. So let's say I'm making servers. I am committing to my customer the date that they will get to their location. If I don't meet that date, it has a high impact first on my customer satisfaction, but then longer term, just on the customer or on revenue based on that customer dissatisfaction. So we really want to make it so that everyone who should know where the orders are in the plant can know where the orders are in the plant. Once you don't know where the orders are in the plant, it's impossible really to optimize or prioritize. And what you really end up with is a plant floor that's crammed with materials, or you don't have enough materials. So to further extend the consumer FedEx analogy, it would be like saying, because I ordered a sweater from Amazon but I don't know when it's going to arrive, I'm just going to order 5 more sweaters because I know one of them is going to arrive in time. And that's what it's bordering on tragic, but that's what manufacturers really do some of today, where they're kind of placing their bets, and they have to place more bets than they otherwise would because they don't have that visibility into the shop floor. In terms of gaps where you could possibly extend WIP Manager and how it could be, how we could add value to it, there's different ways. So from a data collection standpoint, if we had RFID tags or barcode scans that just represented the different order progression, and you could input into our WIP Manager system, that'd be great. If you had a plant floor view that showed all the orders and where the orders are in the progression, that would be a major value add. That's some of the things that customers are looking for. Next up is Efficiency Analyzer. And Efficiency Analyzer, it's really like bringing IoT into the factory. So another analogy I always use, right, a Fitbit analogy, where once I put on my Fitbit device, a source of data that all sorts of data can be extrapolated from me at that point. For lack of a better phrase, I kind of make myself into a sensor, or I bring on sensors so I can get information. What Efficiency Analyzer does is that same thing, but for the machines within manufacturing. So whereas I put on a Fitbit device, and then you can see my productivity and when I'm asleep and when I'm napping, or whatever. For Efficiency Analyzer, it really does the same thing for machines, so that I can monitor when was it planned to go down, and when did it actually go down, and what were the reasons it went down. I get a good sense of how efficient those machines are. And then in terms of the customer pain points, right now, to do that sort of thing, to create to make a machine into a sensor-enabled device and get that context, it's really a hard process that takes a lot of time. So what Efficiency Analyzer really does well is, just like you buy your Fitbit and it's so quick to install it, Efficiency Analyzer is really quick to deploy, so they can get their machines monitored really quickly, and then they can get downtime visibility and improved decision support, and also line and plant-wide visibility, also the enterprise visibility as they navigate between different plants. Things that we could do to make this application better, they're things like, I've been talking about Fitbit, but for an Apple Watch, where an operator might have responsibility for multiple machines, they should get a notification when one of the machines goes down. And that's something we don't have the capability to do today, but is of real interest for manufacturers. Just increase notifications about different scenarios. The other thing that I'd add on is, all of this is looking at the history, but what manufacturers really want, I don't want to know necessarily why my machine went down last hour. I want to know what is going to keep it from going down in the next hour. So any of those predictive sort of analytics based on history that we could do would be great. And then the third app, Enterprise Plant Insights, it's really a KPI viewer for your factory. I'll stick with my Fitbit analogy. If Efficiency Analyzer is where I I become that IoT-enabled device. Enterprise Plan Insights is like the Fitbit dashboard that shows you exactly how you're doing, what is your plant health. So we have some out-of-the-box KPIs that we provide with for all manufacturers. You know, how many products you've produced, what was their yield, how many were defective, all these sort of basic things. But really, the opportunity is to build out more of these cards. Right now, there's a lot of fragmented and untapped data. So it's hard to correlate between applications. It's hard to get that single view at the plant level that says, here's my overall health, because maybe you have different systems running and they're not integrated. You know, you really, it's hard to bring it all together, to aggregate. What it really enables us to do is from the bottom up, and we're talking about users and decision makers, it really enables everyone to have that plant level visibility. So that the opportunities to extend this product are definitely around building out more KPI cards, more views of the data that are beneficial. The other thing I wanted to show you was the APIs that are underneath. And this, I'm just pulling up the DevPost site under the resources, which has all the APIs underneath each of the products. So we have Efficiency Analyzer, WIP Manager, as well as Enterprise Plan Insights. For Efficiency Analyzer, because it's really around all your machine productivity, the services are all around that. So the key one, I would say, are just the different metrics, either by line or by machine, where you can pull all of that data. For Work in Process Manager, WIP Manager, it has all of the work orders and the operations, all of that context of what is actually going to happen to the site. So if you want to do a plant floor visualization, you could do that because you know what all the work orders are, what are the operations, where they've been, how that fits into the work center, all that information. And then for Enterprise Plan Insights, you'll note that each of the services is really its own service, and you can pull all this data together within different visualizations. So again, this was just on the DevPost site that we have set up. Certainly there's more information. Being up more on the product management side, I probably have done a bit of a disservice to the services underneath. So please ask questions in the Hangouts just to get more context and understand more. So Brandon, that's what I had to share. I'm glad we got over our technical difficulties. I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Mark. That was phenomenal. That was a fantastic overview. We really appreciate it. And we are going to now switch the video back to me, and I'll get confirmation when it's done. And looks like it has been switched over to my slide, so we are in good shape. Cool. Great. So just to repeat, if anybody has any questions, they can please post them in the chat. We are monitoring the chat, and we have some questions here which we will answer. But in the meantime, any of you that were watching, if you have any questions, whether it's about the competition or about any of the products, just let us know and we will cover them here, and if not, later. So here's where you can email us throughout the competition. It's support@devpost.com. We've also listed here the brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com /details/Slack, which is the URL for the Slack channel where you can ask questions, you can find teammates, and you can help each other. And in addition, we do have a discussion forum. We will post these slides also so that you'll be able to look at them later. So a few questions here to start. Do the apps have to be newly created for this competition, or can they be pre-existing? That's one for us. So existing applications are indeed eligible for this competition as long as they were first selected in the ideas round. That is this first round, which has 2 more weeks before the deadline. And at that point, they will have to then integrate at least one of the Brilliant Manufacturing APIs or data that's available using the hackathon-specific predicts account after the start of the build round. So if your application already exists, it's fine. You should submit the idea, and then if it's accepted, we'll then have to include one of the APIs. It looks like another question here. How do I submit my idea? Okay, so some of you may have missed this earlier, but there is a tab at the top of the competition website that says, ideas submission, submit your ideas. That's where you submit your ideas. So you're going to want to register for the competition on the home page of the competition website, and then you're going to submit your idea on the submissions tab. That deadline is March 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then the build round deadline is May 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so we have a question here. What size products are being processed in these plants? This looks like this is going to be a question for either Mark or Sunita.
Yeah. That's a good question. And Brendan, you can still hear us, right?
Yes.
What a world. Okay. So it really depends. We have Brilliant Manufacturing in plants that are making our internal engines that go on the wings of aircraft, as well as we have customers that are running CPG factories making things like diapers or food and bev. So it's very variable. Speaking for the larger group, certainly the submissions and the ideas can be for any of those verticals. We're meant to address it. I think the main verticals it's a great fit for. With discrete, certainly, and within discrete heavy industrial, we have some electronic components that we're monitoring as well. And then on the process hybrid side, CPG, pharma, food and bev. So we run the gamut.
Yeah. Hey, Brendan, I also wanted to just quickly add to your comment on whether the product should be existing or you can sort of extend the existing ones. So the API documentation that Mark just showed, it was on a high level. We do have like the thorough API contract definitions that that you can look at and see how you can extend, or even so you can extend that too. So even when you are building new application, we can also look at how you would actually integrate that within our Brilliant Manufacturing ecosystem.
Great, thank you. And it looks like there was a follow-up to the question that Mark was answering. It says also, how many workers are there on the floor of these plants, and how many are in charge of tracking WIP?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So the amount of operators is really variable. We tend to sell to larger organizations that have between the hundreds and the thousands of operators. Usually you would get at least about 50 to 100 per shift in terms of operators. On the WIP management side and who's really responsible, it's really a supervisor task to be able to answer to their management who is where are all the different products. But then the operators themselves get involved because they're the ones actually working on it. It depends on the plant. I would give a rough ballpark of about 5 people for a moderately sized factory that are responsible to make sure that they can find the WIP. And that is, the question's a good one, because that is how they do it today, is really they deploy people. So one of the opportunities is to be able to leverage those people for other opportunities versus going and just playing, scavenger hunt, essentially.
Great. Looks like we have another question. Do GE Digital employees that are subscribing to this competition already have access to predicts and other resources? So that's a question for us here at DevPost. So GE Digital employees are not eligible for this competition. Nobody who is employed by GE may, or DevPost may enter this competition. However, app developers that are part of GE's partner ecosystem are able to enter. So partners are able to enter, but nobody who is an employee of GE may enter. And in terms of getting access to this hackathon specific information, no, only those that are chosen as the top 30 will then have access to that information. Okay, so another question here. May I enter more than one app? We can take that. There is no limit to how many ideas an eligible person, team, or organization may enter during the initial idea round, whose deadline, again, is 2 weeks from now. However, you may only submit your build of that chosen idea during the build round. Let's see, there is another question here. There's a question about the information that is coming after. So what manufacturing plants or sources will the APIs be pulling from for this hackathon specifically, as in the data that the top 30 will be getting? I believe that information may still be TBD, Sunita, unless you have anything on that.
No, I think let's keep it as TBD. We'll get back on that.
Got it. So clearly, the whatever data is available will certainly be in line with what has been stated today and with what is already on the resources section. As for anything more specific about that data for the top 30 ideas, that will come later.
Yeah, so we are actually going to have some sample data for all these APIs. So our participants can get themselves familiarized with that.
Okay, great. Question, what use case is complex and difficult to implement in a month's time? I'm not sure if I understand that question. If the question is, what's the hardest use case that I, as a submitter, can achieve within a month's time, I would say the answer is we don't know, and we also want to be sure that we are not stating that one idea is going to score higher than another and speak on behalf of any of the judges, whether it's internal or external judges. So I think that's a great question that leads into what's the judging criteria, and how will the judging criteria matter? What are judges looking for? Well, there is judging criteria that is on the competition homepage at brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com. And there are criteria that are stated for the idea round. There are 4 different judging criteria for the idea round. And then there are 4 criteria listed for the build round. They are very similar, but we just, there's a little bit of language change for them. So let's just go over the ideas rounds. There's the quality of the idea, the potential value to manufacturers, the potential use of Brilliant Manufacturing Suite, and the feasibility of implementation. So if you're wondering how to make a good idea, or then what I would suggest you do is put yourself in the shoes of a typical judge, saying, hey, I have been given these 4 criteria, and it is now my job to just show up and rate whatever has been given based on these 4 criteria. That is the absolute best way for you to try and figure out what the judges may like. It's just by putting yourself in their shoes, looking at the judging criteria, and doing your best within reason to maximize for those. That's going to be the best way to do it. Now, as for complexity, the question mentioned complexity. There is not a judging criteria here that says complexity. It's quality, it's potential value, it's use of the manufacturing suite, and its feasibility of implementation. So I would stick to those. Okay, and we are going to see if there are any more cues, any more questions, and we will give it a minute or so. Okay, it looks like there may have been a clarification of the question. I meant, what if we have a great idea, but it might be difficult to complete the implementation, given that we would be seeing the APIs for the first time if the idea is selected? Well, so great question. Hence, the part of the purpose of this webinar and the resources tab that was alluded to earlier, or that was shown earlier. On that resources tab, it shows some of the data types that are available, and I think that should be enough information for you to then be able to plug that data in as ingredients in your application. So I think it's obviously our guess would be that plugging the data in and the APIs is not going to be what's going to take you so long. It's going to be actually building a functioning application in the first place that works. And so indeed, we do have a period that is listed. That's I believe the deadline is May 8th, and that's when you're going to have to submit your application. So March 21st is the ideas round. Soon after that, we will announce the winner, the top 30 for the build. And then May 8th is when that final deadline will be. And in our experience, that should be enough time to build something. We would recommend that you look at those dates, and when you're thinking of your idea, that you do say, hey, is this something we think we can accomplish given whatever commitments we have already? That certainly would be a reasonable thing to do. Okay. Any last questions that come in? Looks like there's just one coming in now. All right. Give us a second, please. Could you provide more detail about deliverables for the idea round? How much is enough? So I'm gonna have to disappoint you here by saying that what you're going to want to do is click on the idea submit form that is linked from brilliantmanufacturing.devpost.com. And you are going to want to answer the required questions. There is it does not say that it has to be a minimum size, and so you should just use your own judgment to flush out your idea as best you can. And again, our advice to you is to put yourself in the shoes of a judge and say, how much is enough in order to be able to best communicate how this scores on those 4 judging criteria. So some of the questions on that form: describe your idea for a software application, data visualization, product extension, or desktop, mobile, web, or wearable app to provide deeper insight into the manufacturing process. Tell us how you plan to use the GE Brilliant Manufacturing Suite APIs and microservices to build out your idea. And there are a list of about 5 or 6 required questions here, which we think do a pretty good job in giving you some basic direction. So I'm not sure that it comes down to length. I think it comes down to the actual content, whether it's clear. For winners, do they need to be in the US for prizes? No, that there's all of the eligibility requirements are listed on the actual homepage, and it should list all of the countries that are eligible. And there is an eligibility section, and I can read from that here. So the only countries that are currently excluded are Brazil, China, Russia, Cuba, Sudan, Iran, North Korea, Syria, and any other country designated by the U.S. Treasury Office of Foreign Assets Control. That also includes Quebec, which is certainly the only reason that Quebec is not eligible is because of some of their competition laws. So Quebec is also another area where you're not eligible. So in terms of the prizes, we will be paying the prizes to wherever the people are based as residents. Another question, what is the limit for team size? There are no more than 10 teammates is the max, and that is listed in the rules. And if you go to the actual website, click on rules, you can read them all here. We also have abbreviated rules on the homepage, and you can, of course, email us anytime with additional questions. All right. Well, I think that concludes the question for now. We will be posting this online on YouTube later. I want to thank Mark and Sunita and anybody else from GE that joined our chat in order to answer any questions. Thank you all for your time and good luck. We really can't wait to see your ideas within the next 2 weeks, and have a great day.